Thank you guys for tuning in once again. I hope you enjoyed the content, and don't forget to like and subscribe on my channel. We got an interesting topic to talk about today. I think it's gonna, catch some attention. A lot of people that I talked to today recently have been saying that they're feeling depressed, they're feeling down. Through various conversations, I've been talking to different friends, different people around me that I know. I've been hearing the repeated words of depression, being depressed, and it kind of got me thinking, because depression is such a big word, right? And it's not something easy for someone to describe themselves or their state. Being depressed is very, it's a difficult, and it can be a very painful experience. It can be someone that is stuck in a loop of non-progress, stuck in a loop of complete sadness, complete a hole that they can never get out from. That is what depression is in a sense. But because depression is such a strong word, and I think it is quite serious when you're terming it to someone, it started to make me think: are we really depressed, or are we just disappointed? Think about it. Are you actually depressed, or you're actually disappointed? There's a big difference between both terms, and I'm going to explain what I mean. So what is depression in simple terms? Depression is really just a series of disappointments that are compiled together, and that causes you a constant state of sadness, lack of joy, and just feeling like you're physically and mentally not able to do anything in life. That is, in a nutshell, what depression is. Now, are we really depressed, or there are factors and there are circumstances that cause us to fall into depression, but initially it starts as a disappointment? And I think a disappointment is something we all human beings go through. You can't avoid it. It's part of life. But for me personally, if there are two important factors that play a role in disappointment, is expectations and the environment that's around you. You see, disappointment is a natural emotional response to unmet expectations. You simply feel disappointed when things don't go your way, whether it is that job that you wanted to receive and you didn't get, the promotion that you desired but you didn't receive, the crush that you confessed to and didn't, you realize they didn't feel the same way about you. Many ways, and many things. A disappointment is just a lot of things that don't fall into your expectation. It's just simple as that. You expected something is going to turn out your way, it didn't happen, you feel disappointment. So it's a temporary feeling of sadness, feeling down, lack of joy, I guess. I found this great definition on psychologytoday.com, and disappointment is a loss and a grief and a moment of sadness, but it's all temporary. That's what it is. But it's all bundled into one. Those three factors are all bundled into one. Whereas depression is a completely different concept. It is the constant sadness, constant loss of interest that is physically and mentally impeding you to move, to even get out of bed sometimes. It is that constant cycle that doesn't stop. It's a persistent feeling of sadness, a persistent feeling of loss and grief. Something that doesn't allow you to progress, something that doesn't allow you to actually move physically and get out of bed or walk around or feel something different. That is the main difference. While disappointment is a fact of life and something I think none of us can deny, unchecked expectations and continuous disappointments do lead one day into depression. That is true. But I think one thing we have to understand here is, yes, we will continue to be disappointed, but when you are disappointed, it is more about an acceptance of it. We don't want to go to depression, and I think this is what people need to realize, because medically speaking, depression is a clinical case. It's a situation where it can literally harm you physically and mentally, and nobody wants to get to that place in life. A lot of people are depressed, actually, and that's a fact. Unfortunately, uh, well, fortunately, we have mental health awareness now, and people are a lot more aware about it and how to deal with it. But a lot of people were not aware that they were depressed or how they got into depression. But I think it starts by managing our expectations and looking at the environment around us, because disappointments or your action to disappointments is something that you can control. There are some ways you can control how your disappointment does not lead into depression. And I think there are 2 or 3 important factors that you need to be aware of. Number one is that you must manage your expectations. Look, it's normal that things are not going to go your way when you expect the best for yourself or the best for any situation that you're involved in. And sometimes your expectations are not met. You as a person have to be flexible. You have to have a very strong self-awareness of yourself and life. Not everything is going to go your way, and not everything is going to go to your expectations. So your expectations need to be realistic. They need to be within reason for you to perhaps not feel so disappointed, but at the same time expect that things are happen. So in my case, there's a lot of things that are not in my control, and that's how I view life. There's a lot of things that are not meant for me or written for me, and they're not really in my control. My job is to ensure that I try to the best of my abilities to make sure that these things happen. And if they don't happen, it is what it is. It does not matter, right? It's just a part of life. Life, like I've said in a lot of my previous videos, life always knocks you, not once, not twice, more than 10 times, even 20 times. It is your part, it is your job to understand this is how life is and to manage your expectations around it. I am not saying that things are not gonna go your way, but for you not to feel down, for you not to feel a sense of loss or grief or sadness, or a consistent sense of loss or grief or sadness, you must manage your expectations. Factor number 2 is that you need to realize that the core difference between a disappointment and a depression is the consistent setbacks that you might get from a depression. So one temporary feeling of disappointment, which you're allowed to have, does not mean that you're depressed. It's just temporary. That's what it is. It's a phase. It's gonna fizzle out. It's not something that's always going to stay there with you. It is something that you're just experiencing at the moment. Now, there are some people, and I think the sensitivities or how we receive disappointment differ from a person to another. Some people are impacted on a much higher level and feel that they are in a cycle of depression or they're about to enter depression. I think for those people, it also applies. Are you truly depressed, or are you just disappointed? And if you feel like you are, perhaps you need to be more stricter with the things that you need to manage, which is your expectations, your environment, your how you receive disappointment and all on. So for you, meditation could be more important to calm your nerves, more self-awareness, exploring yourself, knowing what kind of person that you are. A lot of things that have to come, and of course accepting that life is designed not to please everybody. Life is just life. It's going to do what it's gonna do. Another, and probably the most important factor, is your environment. We understand that we're always met by unrealistic expectations through our environment. We're all through social media, because we see that all the time, that people are on their best behavior or showcase their best versions of themselves on social media, and that can affect our mental health. We may have families, we may have friends, we may even live in a society that just ask us to measure up to it in a very unrealistic way. And that causes harm to us, right? And it can even affect us more and more and more. And to combat this problem is that you need to surround yourself with an environment that does not fuel unhealthy expectation, that doesn't cause you to spiral and feel bad about yourself and really be down all the time. That's the key part here. When you think about these things, they're really in your control. The kind of friends, the kind of expectations, the kind of environment, your access to social media, all of these are in your control. And if you control them even more, you're probably not going to feel depressed, or you're not going to fall into depression. You're going to feel disappointed. Like I said, there is You can't run away from that, unfortunately, but you can control how long your disappointment lasts. Here are some tips that I would recommend that I do for myself, and it's always worked. Practice self-awareness. This is something that I've always kind of put. I've always been trying to be self-aware about myself, deeply understand what kind of person that I am. So, for example, I'll give you a very silly example. I don't like being ignored, right? I don't like being ignored on text. I don't like being ignored by people. But I've understood that, and that actually causes disappointment, but I've understood that I can't control people's behavior, or I can't even expect people to align with how I feel about me being ignored or not, for example. So I've created that self-awareness about myself and being a little bit more flexible. But I've also surrounded myself with people who understand that part of me, who understand that I also don't like being ignored, and they make an effort in dealing with that. So these are small things that you need to work on yourself in terms of being self-aware. Also, you need to practice gratitude. You're blessed to have, the things you have. Probably there are people in whatever situation in life, there's always going to be people that are worse off than you. Think about it. You're living in a house. There are people that are homeless. You're eating every day. There are people that cannot even find food for days. So you need to practice gratitude, and also seek balance. Seek balancing in everything. Everything needs to be in balance. You don't have to have an excessive of things that affect you negatively, and of course you don't need to refrain from things that I'm not telling you to never see social media. That's not actually a good thing. I think it's good to have everything in balance and moderation, but it's up to you to manage that balance. One last tip would be to celebrate small wins. I think it's important that we all need to celebrate the accomplishments that we do, whether that is actually asking your boss for a promotion, whether that's actually getting maybe a driver's license, whether that's actually maybe asking someone out on a date. Celebrate small accomplishments, man. I think that's important. That's very, very, very helpful. It boosts your self-confidence, your self-esteem. It allows you to understand that you're someone who can truly shine, even in the smallest moment. And I'm gonna end it on this, guys. Always remember that talking about these things are helpful, right? Mentioning these things are good to you, because it creates an awareness that that these things exist. And at the same time, I think if you find a couple of friends that you really trust and care for, and share with them this kind of information, they can always uplift you and give you the right words of affirmation, motivating you and get you out of that possible hole that you're seeing yourself in. These are not easy conversations to have, right? And I think it's not something that people talk about often, because it shows weakness, it shows vulnerability, and nobody wants to see others in that compromise, or nobody wants to see themselves in that compromise position in front of others. You always want to hide away from the camera. You always want to shy away and never talk about these things. But ultimately, it does not matter, man, because what matters is your health. It matters what's going to allow you to grow and get out of the problems that you're facing, and how you face them head on. I'm not I just make an observation. I'm talking here, I'm just making an observation, and I realize these are the things that we all go through. We all go through the same struggles. You're not alone. You're not alone. Real talk. We all are going through the same pain and hurdles and difficulties and challenges, and nobody is unique. Maybe their circumstances are different. Maybe the context to what led us to those positions or circumstances are different, but we all go through the same struggles, different variations, but we do. And that's, I think, that circle, that support circle is so important, whether you find it online by talking to me or listening to me, or whether you find it among your family and friends and your environment that surrounds you, that can uplift you and help you get out and not feel down anymore and not feel sad. Shout out to all the people who are trying their best. Shout out to all the people who are working their hardest to not feel sad or depressed. Shout out to all the people who are facing head on their challenges and their difficulties. I salute you, I respect you, and I admire you as well, because it's not easy to do this, and it's fucking hard, and it's difficult as shit. So, you know, I just wanted to end it on a good word. But listen, if you're already heading towards the right direction, you're already a strong motherfucker. That's what you are, man or woman, and I respect the shit out of you. Just be aware, and I hope you take my tips and my advice. I'm just a regular person who's been through a lot of these situations, but worked on myself, improved myself, and I'm working on myself every single day. And remember, I'm your friend. I am not an expert. I'm someone who is also going through these situations, but I can relate, I can understand, and more importantly, I can listen to you. I hope you guys found this video super helpful, and let me know if you enjoyed this kind of content, and I will keep talking soon.